Vietnam podcast. My name is Niall Mackay and I'm your host. This is season 6. Don't forget you can go back through the whole catalogue and find all 5 seasons of 7 Million Bikes. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notifications. Follow 7 Million Bikes on Facebook. Go on there and give it a like. We're also on Instagram. If you do enjoy this content, then please go on the link in the notes for patreon.com and you can become a member of a Vietnam podcast and you get some cool benefits like free tickets. You'll get early bonus content as well. If you just want to buy me a coffee, there's also a link in the show notes. You can send me a coffee as well. So thank you very much to the previous people that sent me coffees. They were very much enjoyed. So very, very much appreciated. So enjoy 7 Million Bikes, a Vietnam podcast. I'm excited to introduce my guest today. She has a restaurant in Houston, Texas, where she spends half of her time pre-pandemic. 3 restaurants in Saigon. Is a celebrity chef who's been featured on NBC, US Today, and currently has 3 shows on Netflix. My guest today is Nickie Tran.
Hello, everyone.
We had a bit of an ordeal trying to get this episode set up because you got locked out of your apartment.
Yes, I got locked out of my own apartment because the lock something was wrong with the lock and I couldn't get my thumbprint registered.
When you told me, like, my thumb's not working, I was like, what, is your thumbprint changed suddenly? Like, one of these things that should work, right?
Yes, and it took me like 3 hours just sitting down outside of my own room in my house. That was really, really frustrating.
But you got in eventually, and thank you for joining today.
Yes, I got in the next day.
So you're from Saigon originally, right?
Yes, I'm from Saigon originally. And I went to U.S. in my teenage years. And I spent, of course, a lot of time there. Then I came back here. At first, I just came back to visit. And I saw that the city changed so much. And at that time, I was working for Micron. It's a chip, a chip maker in the U.S. is one of the biggest. And I just wanted to change. I was just at a point where I wanted to see what was out there, outside of the U.S. Because of course, before that, I when I got out of school and I started working, always in the U.S. and I just wanted to, go somewhere and explore the world. And of course, at that time, coming back to Vietnam and looking, at all the changes that had been made for the past, so many years, I just felt like I was in a foreign country, but I speak the language. So I thought, well, okay, let's give it a try. And I came back here. And I opened a restaurant because I thought that, well, everyone seemed like eating and drinking. So maybe it's something easy. And I failed. I failed big time. I'm talking about really, really big.
What year was this?
2010.
Right. And so you're not a trained chef?
No, I always call myself an accidental chef. I was thrown into the kitchen. I opened a few restaurants and I failed them all. And I decided to go back to the U.S. So I thought that I would never, ever open another restaurant in my life. And I swore that, So I went back to the U.S., but I came back here one time. I opened a very, very small shop, and that was meant as a gift for my my employee, the employees that very loyal to me, and they helped me a lot getting through all the tough time. But then they didn't want to do it because for them that was just too much, and I was about to leave and just dump the lease and everything. But that very one night, I was sitting with my friends and I bought some seafood from Phu Quoc Island. And I I cook for them. I didn't really cook for them. I just steam them. And my friend said, wow, the seafood is so good. Why don't you open a restaurant? I said, no, 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 no. I'm not going to open a restaurant anymore. They're like, no, the restaurant that you open was just too big. And then you had to have chef. Why don't you get something small, like street food like? And, I was drunk. And the person that who encouraged me to open that, she said, hey, I'm a very famous actress, let me be your partner. Just give me some percentage, and I'll tell people that it's mine. I promote it, but it's very small. We got like 4 tables outside and 3 tables inside. Very, very small. And at that very one night, I call up one guy that we found online. So he remodeled the place. So it cost like 80 million dong. And I put down a deposit, but we were all drunk, we were very, very drunk that night. So the guy came, took the deposit, 5 million, and he left the next day. So I realized that it was just too late. I'm like, I'm not going to open another restaurant. No, 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 no. This is too much. I'm going to kill myself. I failed and I lost a lot of money. I borrowed money from my mom, and, it was all gone. And I hated it. But then I had no choice. My friend remember, I don't think she was as drunk as I was. Or maybe she was drunk too, but she was excited because she never had a restaurant before. So and the guy came, and of course, because it was so small, so he fixed it in like 5 days. And then we opened in 7 days, from that night. But I call one of my former chefs, and one of the, that guy that I like him the most. So I called him. I said, can you come work for me? He said, yes, I can come work for you at night, because in the daytime I cook for a company. So it's not a restaurant. So it's just like a 9-to-5 job. So at nighttime I could cook for you. I said, yeah, that's fine. Because in the daytime, my friend wanted to sell milk, fresh milk out of that place. I said, that's fine. And he promised that he would be there on the grand opening day, and he never showed up. So 8 o'clock at nighttime, that's when we had, the grand opening hour. We open at that time, because the fortune teller that my friend got, he told her, open at 8 o'clock at nighttime, you're gonna have, good business, blah blah blah. And we invited her fans and reporters and all the people in her industry. And she has a lot of friends, she has a lot of fans, and she's still a famous actress now. She's anyways, and we opened, and I didn't know what to do. We didn't even have a menu. So I wrote it by hand, with 9 items, steamed fish, grilled fish, and fried fish, and then steamed squid, fry, and then grill, and then some crabs. That was it.
Just everything 3 different ways: steamed, grilled, or fried.
Yes. With no, seasoning. Just some fish sauce or some salt. And after 1 month that we had really, really, really good business, then it died down, because her fans, already saw her, talked to her. And that's when I just I felt like I got slapped in the face that, hey, you really need to cook seriously for the people that want to come to eat, but not for the people that come to see their idol. And then, I started cooking, and now I'm a chef.
I want to just pick up on one thing there that made me laugh so hard. This might be the one drunk decision that turned out well in the history of mankind.
Exactly.
Everyone, myself included, has had a drunk night out with friends, and it's always the same. Let's open a bar. Yeah, we should open a bar, definitely. you never do it, and probably if you do, it doesn't turn out as successful as you would hope.
Yes, I think that's the decision that I've made when I'm drunk, and that I am proud the most, and I'm glad that I was drunk that night. So it changed my life. It did change my life, but I don't think that I really don't want to make another decision when I'm drunk, like the big decision when I'm drunk anymore. I think that's one is enough.
So before you were working for a micro processing company?
The position that created when I got into Micron, that was in 2008, and that was, I was the last person that got hired in the company. So they, because that, the financial crisis, but my position was very different. I acted as a bridge between the engineering department, business department, and production department, because they all speak different languages, so they need like a translator. And that's the kind of position that they decided to create. And I was one of the first people, but also the last batch of people that got hired at that period of time. And we had a hiring freeze. After 2 weeks or 3 weeks working there, being trained there, I saw my recruiter in the production department getting trained also, and even the accounting department, that they have to go down to the production, and everyone put in their time, and that was one of the time that I treasure the most too, because I learned how, the corporate environment, but also the manufacturing environment, and also how people team up, and how people unite, and how people fight, with each other, not with each other, but fight, to survive.
And at this point, you had no intentions or no idea you were going to go on to be a chef?
No, I had never, ever in my life thought that I was going to be a chef. That was just out of question. I didn't like it. I didn't like cooking. I didn't. I liked to own a restaurant, but I like to own a lot of things,
Well, I want to go back again. It's absolutely crazy to me that you go from that no intention and then to be a successful chef. So what made you open up all those restaurants then, and failing and keep coming back?
I think I'm kind of stubborn, because I'm
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I that's just me, when you talk to, of course, when you get interviewed, and then you always have to create a great story, but no, I don't give up. I don't give up. I opened, I think, 3 or 4 restaurants in Vietnam when I failed.
All in Saigon.
In Saigon, and I really, but then I just realized that even though I spoke the language, but I didn't understand the culture, and that's something that happened to a lot of Vietnamese people overseas, that coming back to Vietnam to try to do something. And of course, there are great people, there are smart people that it could make it, but there are so many people that, like me, that they think that they speak the language, and they know the people, but the thing is that they don't know the culture.
I've heard this before from other people. Yeah, I don't speak the language and I don't know the culture, so I'm really screwed.
No, but the thing is that when you go to a different country, and then you don't know the culture, and then you don't speak the language, so you're more careful, and for us, I think we just underestimate, the differences, the culture differences.
So was that very confusing then, coming back to Vietnam, your home country, and then learning, like, I don't understand this place?
Exactly, but...
We'll be right back.
Join pilot and adventurer Fernando Pino as he takes you on journeys to discover exciting destinations across the UK and Europe. You'll fly with him to hidden gems and experience local culture, from bustling streets to serene hideaways and the best places to eat, sleep, and play. Travel Plans is more than a podcast. It's your ticket to exploring the world and its history with a friend. In this episode, we are flying to discover a beachside paradise perfect for the whole family. Discover golden sands, activities galore, and even free childcare so you get your own break too. Why am I still here?
After a couple of years, I just realized that, oops, I really don't understand this country at all. You know, I understand the language, but I don't understand,
Can you give an example of maybe one example of what that meant in reality, of not understanding it, then understanding it, and that changing the way things worked?
Can be very blunt. Well, here people say things that they don't mean.
Yeah,
I've
come across that.
or they don't say the things that they mean.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I got and I always think that if you bring, if I bring what I know in the US and try to make it better, I just say that I was just full of myself. I thought that I knew better, but I didn't know anything. So when I decided to go back to the US, that was a very hard decision because like I said, I just don't give up. Um, but I ran out of money.
Yeah. Well, it's something I've come across what you explained there. I've come across that myself, and I've heard things about, when you're trying to get something done, like a project, you're trying to work with someone. If I remember it correctly, the way it was told to me, the more you hear yes, the more likely the answer will be no. So you'll go through this like, yep, we're gonna do it. You'll get an email from someone else, yep, we're gonna do it. And then, but the more you just keep hearing yes, it ultimately means no. It's only once you get the okay from the person above, or the person who can okay the project, that's actually when something will happen. And that can make things last for straggle on for months or whatever, because you basically led along the garden path of, we're going to do it, but there's no intention.
Exactly. And then there are other people that they're hearing, but they're not listening. I run into that a lot. But I would say that it's not their fault, like some of my employees are great, but some of my employees, I think that's uh, the culture, the education, and a lot of things that, like here you just don't talk back, or you just don't, question the
Yeah,
teachers.
definitely.
And you just, and it's like I think it's very passive.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that in my time here. I've worked in the education system, and I know the hierarchy works. You don't answer back, like you're saying. You don't really give your suggestions or feedback to your boss, right? Whatever the boss says is gospel.
Exactly.
Same in the education system. And so, and we've talked about this a lot back in season 1 and 2. I still trying to understand the concept of saving face, and I wonder how much of it comes back into that. People don't like to say no, so where I'm kind of being a bit silly and saying you're led up the garden path and they keep saying yes, part of it is because they don't want to say no because that looks bad on them. Would that be a correct interpretation of that situation?
Yes. And also, I just feel like the communication here is very, very, very indirect. Like I always tell my employees, my customers, or my friends, that if you have any question, if you need anything, and if you want to change anything, or your voice, your opinions, just please tell me. Please tell me anything. And my employees, if they want to raise, they would tell other employees that they want to raise, or they want to quit, but it's not. Sometimes it's just simple as a raise, or maybe a couple of hours off. But the thing is, they don't want to say to me whenever I have a meeting, and then I talk to all the people and said, please let me know. And if you feel like you can't talk in front of people, then just meet me in private and we get everything solved. But until now, so many years in Vietnam, it's still the same. They want something, So but I learned not to. I still say that so that it register in their mind, eventually. But I take people out and I talk to them, Sometimes take them out drinking and talk to them and
Drinking is probably the best when you can have a small one-on-one conversation.
get them drunk and they tell you
Yeah,
everything.
then the loose lips, right? It's something I've heard about often in Vietnam, and it is a cultural thing. And you can say it like, tell me, and then they'll nod and say yes, but then they still won't do it. And it's just, I think it's ingrained so much. So I guess if you start to understand the culture, like you say, then you can go out and have a drink, which maybe you wouldn't do in the West. Maybe you wouldn't do that in America. You wouldn't take your employees out drinking. But then maybe that's a small thing you learn here. Oh, I need to take them out and have some beers, and I'm going to learn a bit more about them, things like that.
Exactly. And for me, going back to the US and opening a restaurant while I already established my name and I already have, some name or some name recognition there already, it was a shock too. It was a total shock because I've
Reverse
been
culture
gone
shock.
for too long. And I don't know what to say, but I don't know if it's as politically incorrect, but I feel like the work ethic there had been changed too. It's different from the time that I was there. Um, but I'm not gonna get into that. However, I have very good team with me now. I have great people working with me now, and even though I'm far away, I have my partners and I have my employees that they're really really great. However, in the beginning, of course, I went through people like crazy. It's just like, in Vietnam in the beginning. And there was things that shocked me. And how the culture of everything that you just go online and you just yap, about something that you don't like, instead of going straight to the owner or the manager, said, hey, all right, I don't like this dish. And I just feel like, wow, so it's just as indirect as Vietnam now, you know, uh, and I mean, before I got really frustrated when I opened my restaurant in Vietnam, but then now I started to learn it. I learned to love my employees, and it's not just learning to love them, but I love them because you have to see them as people, as person, and of course there are people that you want to strangle, but I have to look deep, underneath, their background, their family background, and a lot of things. But one thing I feel is that the love that they have for me is also mutual, you know, and over here I could ask my employees, hey, could you do this for me, could you do that for me, can you go get something for me, and it's not about taking advantage of them, but that's like family, like, they're like, oh, or when I'm sick, they said, boss, I'll make you something to eat.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or and they go back to the countryside, they always get fruit or something, um some gifts for me. And then we're very close. Whereas if I do something like that in the US, hey, can you go wash my car? I'd be like, I'll be sued.
Yeah.
But over here it's different. But they ask me the same thing too. Hey, boss, could you get this for me? Get that for me? And here it's more. It's not as professional as in the US, but it's very very close knit. And it's very family oriented.
Yeah.
And I like both. Because my restaurant in the US is it's not like here.
I was going to say, so that must be like really challenging to have restaurants in both countries. They would have to be managed so differently.
Very, very, but in the beginning when I opened my restaurant in the US, I got culture shock too. And in my own country, I still consider myself a fish sauce American. So
Fish sauce American. Is that a new term, or is that?
That's my term.
I
that's
like
my
that.
term.
I'm going to
yeah.
put that on the podcast title. You're a fish sauce American.
I'm gonna tattoo it on my neck. Fish sauce American. So, but I stayed there for the first 6 months. I stayed there, more than I spent my time in Vietnam, and I had to relearn everything. Um, but then after that, just 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. In the beginning, it was really hard too, because you culture shock yourself, just like
Jeez, that is that's a mental workout. You got to switch every 2 weeks.
yes. But then when I was in the US, I just felt like, oh, I have to be, this person. I have to be very professional, and I can't, talk to my employees. And I could joke with the guys, but with the female employees, I have to be very careful, um, um, just to be cautious. But they were all great. I just didn't want to, get sued or anything,
For sure.
Yeah. Um, I did take them out to drink, and they loved it. But then my friend said, "Hey, don't do that too much, okay?" I said, "Okay, okay, okay." So, and then when as soon as I get back to Vietnam, then all my employees said, "Boss, take us out to eat, drink. We have to drink, we have to drink. And then I'd be, 2 weeks here, I'll be drinking with them every night, because some of them even live in my house. So I'll drink with them. I'll be drinking with them every night, and then I go back to the U.S. and I'll be very professional, And
It's such a stark contrast. So you're from Houston in the US, which has the second biggest Vietnamese population in the US, right?
yes,
Now tell me more about that, because we've interviewed other people on the show like Tam Le, who I should remember this, but it was a long time ago that I interviewed Tam Le. I think she's from Houston as well. Have you met her before? She ran Saigonita.
no,
The Saigonita. So we interviewed Tam Le. She's from Houston. We've interviewed Vietnamese people from around the world in America, and from what I've learned, and we've talked about it, there's like not a rivalry, but there's like a difference. There's different types of Vietnamese people, basically, right?
yes. I think too many. You can't just say like one or two groups. It's just that too many layers. The people that been there for a long time, the people that just got there, and then the kids that were born there, and the kids that just in their teenage years or a little bit younger, but then they all pick different crowd to hang out. There are some kids that are just like American, but they're kids that were born there, but they still very, mm, Asian culture, Vietnamese culture influenced. And they're, you know, Vietnamese people, Vietnamese American that will not hang out with white people or black people or brown people. They just hang out with their community, and they're just not it's also different too, because you have the Vietnamese that are very very Vietnamese, so they always hang out with Vietnamese, and you have the Vietnamese that were born there, or you know when they very very young. However, they still don't want to hang out with other races, and they hang out with the people just like them, and they don't want to hang out with the people that that don't speak English well. But and then you have the Vietnamese that don't want anything to do with Vietnamese. So there's so many groups, and I just feel like sometimes it's suffocating for me.
As an outsider in the US, they must just look at Vietnamese people as a monolith in the US. Be like, oh, you're all the same, but like not at all, right?
But I think I pay attention too much. When I was in school, I loved to take courses in social studies, anthropology. Anything that I observe people, and I don't think I have read anything about how Vietnamese people divided into groups like that. But with me, but I'm the kind of person that I could hang out with anybody. So I see that, I feel that. And I could talk to someone that who went to the US in 75 or even before 75, that people there that they've been there for a long time. And then or I could talk to someone that just got there yesterday.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Where do you fit into that?
I think I fit in all groups.
All of them. One of the things I found interesting when I talked to Tamle was that there's a very stark difference between like the 1975 people and post 1975. And one of the things that I found fascinating was, like, so for Tamle, her mum and dad spoke a different type of Vietnamese. So they used words in Vietnamese that now didn't exist because, language changes. But for them, language stopped at 1975. So it was like the word for airport, which I can't remember now, but her mum and dad would say, like, are you going to the Vietnamese word for airport? And she's like, oh no, we don't call
Sân bay.
it. Yeah, that's
and
right.
It's called phi trường, and they call it sân bay.
There you go, yeah. And so she said that things like that would be not confusing, but I found that really interesting. And they were confused that so she came back to Vietnam. And from many Viet Q people I've spoke to, that's a common theme, is their parents are, which again I found really fascinating. Their parents are like, why would you go back to Vietnam? Because they made such an effort to leave. Their parents were like boat people that risked their lives to get out of Vietnam. And then your offspring is like, I'm going back.
I have been asked that question a lot. And there are people that refused to acknowledge that Vietnam has been changing, has been changed and still changing. And when I tell them Saigon is a very dynamic city, and they just don't believe me, and they just hate me. They're like, "You communist." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just telling the truth,
They said that the parents were like, they would be scared to come back themselves because they still think that they might be persecuted or whatnot because they left, and their children have had to be like, no, it's not like that now. It's completely different.
I think that part of it, but also there are people that they refuse to see that. Of course, I understand what they had gone through, but there are people that refuse to want to see that Vietnam has made progress. And I wouldn't say like all the way, but it has changed a lot. And also there are people that want to see Vietnam as a poorer country, and maybe because it makes them feel better. But also there are people that they were traumatized because all the experience that they went through, or the boat people. I have friends that went through terrible things, and that's something like the PTSD that they don't want to go back to, where that they felt so traumatized by
it makes complete sense. I've mentioned it a few times. I'm listening right now to a podcast, which you said you didn't know what podcasts are, so I'll need to send you this one. It's called Vietnamese Boat People, and it's by a woman in America called Tracy Nguyen, who, if you are listening, Tracy, we want to get you on this show. So we've sent Tracy an email and a message to try and interview her. So she started it out as a family project, interviewing her mum and dad, who were boat people. And again, the common theme that I've learned as I've spoken to people about it is, because of the traumatization and the PTSD, most parents won't talk about it or haven't actually shared these stories with their children, because why would you want to share that? But what this woman, Tracy Nguyen, and her family are doing, they're talking to their mum and dad, they're recording it, and then it's become really big now. They've just been highlighted in Forbes magazine. They interview people all over the US and the world, I think, sharing their stories about that, and it's bringing that issue to light more. I've read some books about it. I mean, it is a really absolutely horrible thing that people went through when they fled Vietnam by boat. So I can understand why, they wouldn't want to come back.
Yes, I understand why too, but there are also that people didn't go there by boat, but they're still like, oh, I'm better, you know. But there are other, you know, like all kind of people. It's a society, right? Um, and a lot of people that when they went to the U.S., Vietnam stopped right there. The language, the culture, and a lot of things. And it's funny. You should look into this. There's a group on Facebook, and it's called Asian Children with Trump loving parents. I'm so sorry that
Definitely looking that up.
I'm so sorry that I'll send it to you. I'm so sorry that I have to bring this up, but I think it's really really funny, and it's sad too. You know why? Because the parents, not talking about Trump or Biden, I'm not talking, but I just see how, you know, uh hard it is for them to be in a house that uh their parents have a different set of belief and, you know, political opinion, and their parents said, we brought you here not to be communist. We brought you here for you to go to school, and then now you turn into communist, and then or they get
Because
trashed.
you're supporting Biden.
Yes, or they get trashed, like, oh, all college kids don't know nothing. And then they said, well, then why do you send me to school then? You know, and you send me to school to have an opinion, you know, to know the word, to see the word, you know, with my own view. And then there are people, they actually parents that force their kids to vote for Trump, and, you know, and their kids that run away. I'm telling you, you should get there and and learn about it. Yeah, to me, it's not about Trump or Biden, but I'm just see, you know, how conservative those parents still are, but also how the culture of, you know, only older people are right. It's just it's sad, but to me it's funny at the same time because I read a lot of funny stories, and there are kids that lock themselves in the room or they get beaten up too, you know. And they said
They're old enough to vote, but they still get beaten up.
they get, yes, that's sad, you know. And then they said that, you know, and they're kids that if here you would never, you know, hear anyone saying that. But the kid said, you know, as soon as I can, as soon as I grow up, and as soon as they're old enough, I'm gonna put them in nursing home. And to Vietnamese, I think that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
You know, it's just you just don't put your parents in nursing home. You know, I have nothing against it, but the culture, you know, they like to love, you know, with you know, 3 4 different generations in a house. They said, I'm going to send her to, I'm going to send my mom, I'm going to send my dad to nursing home. Oh, I'm running away, and then they ask themselves how to get away from home. And yes, there are horror stories about it. And I think it's I think that the parents should really go into that and read it. And it's not just for Trump or Biden or anything, but just look at how different and how hard it is for the kid to be born in the US but not live, you know, 100% like, you know, American culture. And they still have to follow very strict sets of Vietnamese culture, Asian cultures. But on the other hand, I think they're torn. You know, they're very, very torn. They see how their friends, you know, um, how much freedom they have, you know, how at home, and they hang out with other kids, and they just feel like, oh, and you should read it, and they're like, oh, because I'm Vietnamese, so I can't do that, I can't do this, and they still stuck to. But whereas, you know, if the kids go to the US at a different age and they used to, you know, the culture already. However, you know, the Vietnamese people change too. So now in Saigon or, you know, some big cities or even small cities, people are not as strict like that. So I just feel like I feel bad for them. I feel sad, you know. Um, but on the other hand, like I said, I find it funny in a sarcastic way. It's so um I read in that group all the times, all the times, and I just feel like, oops, I don't know what I'm gonna do if I have kids. I think I don't know, how I raise them in a very, free, you know, environment, but also have them. I think I have half and half of, I want to teach them the best of both worlds, with the closeness of Asian family, but also, they're free to speak up their mind. But
well, the world is so complex now because of migration. I guess we have these mixings of cultures, which so to me I find it interesting, and I love talking to people like yourself because it exposes me to these different ways of thinking and cultures. Because I'm from Scotland and my family are all white, and I'm from a monoculture. I'm not exposed to that mixing of cultures. And so I can, from the amount of people I've spoken to on the podcast and in real life, I know that it's so challenging and so difficult because you've got these opposing views almost coming together, and the mums and dads, parents have moved their children to somewhere for a better life, like you said, or a different education or whatnot, but then they still impose those cultural beliefs that they've taken with them, and it must be so difficult for you then. So how did your parents react to you moving back and forth between countries, going from working for Macron to then being a chef? How did that play out? If you're enjoying this episode, then just go straight on to the next one. We've split this into 2 parts. That's the end of part 1. If you want to take a break, then you can do that and go back to part 2 later, where you can hear Nickie's answer and we talk about a lot more. It's a really interesting conversation, and we talked about so much that I decided to make this episode 2 parts. So I hope you're enjoying, and if you want to keep listening, go right ahead. Thanks very much for listening to this episode of 7 Million Bikes, a Vietnam podcast. Don't forget to subscribe from wherever you're listening from right now. Turn on the notifications as well so you never miss an episode. If you're new to the podcast, make sure you go back through. We got 5 seasons of amazing guests that you can listen to their stories as well. Please get in touch. I always love to hear from our listeners. It's one of the best things when I wake up in the morning and I open up Instagram or Facebook and I've had a message from someone telling me that they've been listening from America or Australia or anywhere in the world. So please let me know where you're listening from, or Vietnam as well, obviously. I always love to hear from people. I want to give a massive thank you again to our Patreon members, Brandon Thompson and Zion Johnson. If you do enjoy this content, you can support 7 Million Bikes of Vietnam podcast on Patreon. The link is in the show notes. You can become a member of a Vietnam podcast and get access to exclusive member benefits like free tickets to comedy shows or even a free 7 Million Bikes t-shirt as well. So check that out in the show notes, as I said, and you can also buy me a coffee or a beer if you want on coffee.com. So make sure you check that out. So thanks again for listening. Really hope you enjoy season 6 and you can stay tuned for the future episodes. Cheers. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're like me, you may use your laptop at places where you have to use public Wi-Fi. This opens you up to digital snoopers. It's a massive problem. It can be your internet service provider, or you know who, looking at what you do online, or a cyber criminal trying to steal your bank passwords or credit card info, or even a hacker at the next table trying to steal your sensitive data. These days, it is vital that you keep your data safe. NordVPN keeps all of these snoopers away. It makes your internet activity private, protects you from accessing dangerous websites that are phishing for your data, and lets you enjoy your favorite content securely, even while away from home. And it's easy to use, even I could use it. I've actually been using NordVPN for years now here in Vietnam, and I'm excited to be an affiliate partner with them. I've used NordVPN to watch Netflix, BBC, Disney Plus with ease, and I also know that my information and data are safe from prying eyes, whoever they may be. Join now and you'll get 68% off and 3 months free when you go to my link, nordvpn.com/SMB. Just again, for those hard of hearing, nordvpn.com/SMB. The link is also in the show notes. I know nobody checks them out, but go check that out and you can get the link from wherever you are listening to this podcast. As an affiliate partner, it also means that I will get a small commission when you sign up, but at no extra cost to you. So not only will you be getting a great deal through 7 Million Bikes, you get a great VPN and you'll be supporting 7 Million Bikes podcast. Stay safe online and enjoy the shows you love. Any questions, just let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. And thanks for listening to this show. Cheers.